A crisp Wyoming sunrise crept over the rolling fields, setting the tall grasses ablaze with gold and orange. The air was sharp and clear, carrying the scent of pine and the distant promise of summer heat. On the Hart Ranch, nestled just below the rise of the northern hills, everything was still, except for a single black mare pacing the fence line with a purpose no one but she seemed to understand. Camilla Hart, in her worn flannel and boots, watched from the porch steps, coffee mug in hand. The mug, chipped and faded, had belonged to her mother before her, just like the ranch itself, passed down generation after generation, surviving drought, wildfire, and heartbreak. But today, Camilla's attention wasn't on the past. It was fixed on Willow. The mare was a striking sight in the early morning light, her coat a deep, gleaming black, almost blue where the sun hit her flank. Willow's mane, thick and unruly, tossed in the wind as she trotted back and forth along the northern fence, hooves pressing fresh tracks into the dew-soaked ground. She stopped every few yards, ears pricked towards the canyon beyond the property, then doubled back, snorting and pawing at the earth. Camilla narrowed her eyes. She'd raised Willow from a colt, seen every mood and quirk the horse had ever thrown her way. But pacing the north fence? Willow hadn't done that since Camilla was a teenager, since the night a mountain lion prowled too close to the herd. It wasn't just restlessness. It was something deeper, more urgent, a tension vibrating through the air. She glanced up at the horizon. Beyond the fence, the canyon sloped sharply down, thick with cottonwoods and tangled underbrush. Somewhere in the darkness of those trees, movement flickered. A flash of color, a brief, unsteady shape. Camilla couldn't quite make it out, but Willow sure could. The old dog, Jasper, ambled out onto the porch, sniffed the wind, and lay down at her feet. Even he seemed more alert than usual, head up, eyes trained on the horse. Camilla set her mug down. "You see it too, huh, girl?" she muttered to Willow. The mare's ears twitched in her direction, but didn't turn away from the fence. That was answer enough. She watched a moment longer, trying to shake the growing sense of unease. Ranch life had trained her to trust her instincts, and her animals even more. Horses had a sixth sense, everyone in Wyoming said, especially the good ones. Willow was the best Camilla had ever known. She slipped on her battered hat and stepped off the porch. The grass was wet and cold under her boots. As she walked out toward the fence, each step seemed to pull the world tighter, like the hush before a thunderstorm. As she drew closer, Willow stopped, nostrils flaring, breath curling in the dawn air. "What is it, girl?" Camilla murmured, running a hand down Willow's neck. The mare was trembling, muscles tense, eyes fixed beyond the wire. Camilla followed Willow's gaze, peering into the shadows where the rising sun hadn't yet burned away the darkness. For a moment all she heard was the wind and the distant lowing of cattle. Then, faint and far away, came a sound. A child's cry, thin and raw, echoing up from the canyon. A chill shot up Camilla's spine. She tightened her grip on Willow's mane, heart thudding. She looked back at the house. No sign of movement, no one to call out for help. It was just her, Willow, and the uncertain promise of what lay beyond the fence. Sometimes animals see what we miss. That morning, Willow was the only one paying attention. Camilla didn't hesitate. She unlatched the gate and led Willow through, the mare trotting at her side, still keyed up and watching the canyon like it held every answer. The terrain was rough, sloping down through grass and brush, patches of wildflowers clinging to the rocks. Camilla moved fast, Willow's nervous energy urging her on until the world narrowed to the sound of their footsteps and that distant, desperate cry. They reached the edge of the canyon. The trees were thicker here, the air cooler, the light struggling through the tangled canopy. Camilla paused, breath short, listening. Silence. Then, another cry. Closer, this time. A choked, shuddering sob. Willow nudged her forward, and together they pushed through the undergrowth. Camilla's boots slid on loose soil, brambles catching at her jeans. She spotted movement. A figure, slumped against the base of a tree. A boy, maybe 15 or 16, skin dirty and bruised, eyes wide with fear, He was clutching a bundle to his chest. A baby, maybe a year old, her face red and streaked with tears. Camilla stopped short, heart in her throat. The boy's head snapped up, terror flashing across his features. "Hey, easy, easy," Camilla said softly, raising her hands. Willow stood beside her, perfectly still, a steady presence in the chaos. The boy shook his head, tightening his grip on the baby, who whimpered but didn't cry out again. Up close, Camilla could see the bruises, fresh, ugly marks along the boy's arms and jaw. She didn't ask questions, not yet. Instead, she knelt down, putting herself at the boy's eye level. "My name's Camilla. That's Willow. We're not here to hurt you. Looks like you both could use some help." The boy didn't answer, but his eyes flicked to Willow, then back to Camilla. There was something haunted in his gaze, but also a fierce, stubborn protectiveness. The baby stirred, soft curls sticking to her damp forehead. As she blinked at Willow, eyes lighting up for a split second before she burrowed deeper into the boy's chest. "Let me help you," Camilla said quietly. "You're safe here." He flinched when she reached out, but he didn't pull away. Slowly, carefully, Camilla helped him to his feet. He staggered, barely able to walk, but he kept hold of the baby as if she were his whole world. Camilla guided them back toward the ranch, Willow following close behind, head low and watchful. The sun was fully up now, casting long shadows across the field. The ranch, which had always felt so big and empty in the early morning, suddenly felt small, tight with secrets and the unspoken weight of what had just begun. When they reached the porch, Jasper barked once and ran to greet them, tail wagging. Camilla looked back at the canyon, at the place where Willow had first sounded the alarm. Sometimes, she thought, animals know things long before we do. This time, she was certain. Willow had saved more than just a quiet morning. She'd changed the course of 3 lives, maybe more, and the day was only just beginning. By the time Camilla guided the boy and the baby across the porch and through her front door, the sun was bright and full in the Wyoming sky. The morning felt heavier now, loaded with questions she didn't dare ask, the silence stretching between them like an invisible thread, ready to snap. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and pine cleaner, old wood and sun-warmed dust. Camilla moved quickly, instinct carrying her to the kitchen where she set out a pitcher of water and 2 cups, one regular, one with a faded cartoon horse chipped on the rim. She motioned to the boy, gently urging him to sit at the table. He hesitated, arms wrapped tight around the baby, but finally slid onto the bench, holding her close. Willow remained at the window, pacing outside, her silhouette moving back and forth, never straying far from sight. Jasper circled the table once, then curled under the boy's feet, tail thumping, sensing the need for company. Oh, Camilla poured water, slid the cups across the table. "Drink as much as you want, both of you," she added softly. "There's more in the fridge, if you need it." The boy's hands shook as he lifted the cup. The baby, her name still a mystery, gazed at Camilla with wide, questioning eyes, her cheeks stained from crying. She sucked on her thumb, the only sign of comfort she could find in the strange new world. Camilla kept her voice low, her movements calm, as she gathered fruit, crackers, and a slice of bread. She set them on a plate within reach, but not too close, giving space, letting them make the first move. She'd learned long ago that sometimes silence was the kindest thing you could offer. She took a seat at the far end of the table, hands wrapped around her own mug, watching them with careful eyes. The boy's hair was tangled, dusted with grit and leaves. His shirt was torn at the collar, dirt smeared on his jeans, bruises mottling his forearms and jaw. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Camilla didn't press. She just sat, sipping her coffee, letting the sounds of the house, clock ticking, fridge humming, Willow's occasional whinny, fill the room. After a while, the boy slid a piece of bread toward the baby. She took it, chewing slowly, watching Camilla with that open, uncertain stare. It was the boy who spoke first, his voice rough, the words scraped raw. "Where are we?" Camilla offered a small smile. "Heart Ranch, about 5 miles outside of Laramie." "My name's Camilla." "And you?" He hesitated, jaw working, then looked down at the baby, as if the answer was written in her tiny fists. Tyson, this is Maya. The baby, Maya, looked up, as if recognizing her name, then turned back to the bread. Well, Tyson and Maya, Camilla said gently, you're safe here? No one's going to bother you. He didn't respond, but his shoulders slumped just a little. He kept glancing toward the window, toward Willow, as if afraid the outside world might burst in at any moment. Camilla noticed the way Tyson's fingers curled protectively around Maya, how he flinched whenever she shifted in his lap. She saw the bruises, angry and purple, some faded, some fresh. There was a story there, one that screamed for answers, but she held back, knowing trust was earned, not demanded. She pushed the plate a little closer. Eat, please, both of you. Tyson hesitated, then reached for an apple slice, biting into it with careful, deliberate movements. He handed a piece to Maya, who gnawed at it with a quiet determination that made Camilla's chest ache. Minutes ticked by. Camilla moved to the stove, setting a pot of oatmeal to cook, adding cinnamon and a touch of honey. The comforting scent drifted through the kitchen, mixing with the sharp Wyoming air. She caught Tyson watching her, suspicion mingled with exhaustion in his eyes. Do you want to wash up? She offered quietly. The bathroom's just down the hall. I can watch Maya while you clean up, or you can both go together, if that's better. He shook his head, clutching Maya tighter. We're fine, Camilla nodded, making no move to press further. All right. But if you change your mind, it's there. She poured the oatmeal into bowls, setting them on the table. Maya reached for hers with chubby hands, giggling softly as she tried to scoop it with her fingers. Tyson finally allowed himself a small smile, just a flicker, but it was there. Camilla caught it, tucked it away. Willow's shadow lingered at the window, the mare's ears flicking, her eyes trained on Tyson and Maya, as if she, too, needed to keep them in her sight. After breakfast, Camilla showed them to the small guest cabin out back, a simple space with a bed, a chair, and a patchwork quilt her grandmother had sewn decades ago. Tyson looked at the room like it was too good to be true, suspicion never fully leaving his face. Camilla set Maya on the bed. The baby clutched a corner of the quilt, her thumb in her mouth, eyes already drifting closed. Get some rest, Camilla said quietly. You both need it. Tyson didn't answer, but as she left, she heard him whisper something to Maya, too soft for her to catch, but the tenderness in his voice was unmistakable. Back in the kitchen, Camilla leaned against the counter, the weight of the morning pressing down. She dialed her sister Janie, in town, a nurse, someone who understood both wounds and how to treat them. Janie picked up on the second ring. Hey, Cam, you okay? Camilla kept her voice steady. Can you bring some supplies out later? I found some kids. One's hurt. They need clothes, maybe a doctor. Quietly. There was a pause. Then Janie's voice turned serious. Got it. I'll come after my shift. Hanging up, Camilla looked out the window. Willow stood at the edge of the pasture, still watching the cabin, her body taut with unspoken worry. Later that afternoon, after Tyson and Maya had slept, Camilla found them sitting on the cabin steps. Tyson watched Willow, suspicion giving way to something almost like awe as the mare approached, her movements slow and gentle. Maya giggled, reaching for Willow's nose. And for the first time, Tyson allowed himself to relax. He stroked the mare's muzzle, his hand trembling but steadying as Willow pressed closer, snuffling at his fingers. Camilla stood back, watching the three of them, the battered boy, the laughing baby, and the watchful black mare, circled in a fragile peace. She didn't know where they'd come from or what haunted their sleep, but she knew one thing: as long as that they were here, they'd be safe. In the distance, storm clouds gathered over the mountains, but for now, the ranch was quiet, the air humming with hope and the possibility of new beginnings. The Wyoming days stretched long, sunlight pouring in broad swathes over Hart Ranch, dust motes swirling in the late spring air. For Camilla, each sunrise brought a fragile sense of hope. Maybe Tyson and Maya would start to feel safe. Maybe Willow's anxious energy would settle. But change didn't happen overnight. In wounds like Tyson's, didn't heal with a bowl of oatmeal and a warm bed. Tyson kept his distance, always hovering near Maya, his body forming a protective barrier whenever someone approached. He spoke little, answering Camilla's questions with short nods or averted eyes, his words reserved for Maya alone. At night, from the main house, Camilla sometimes heard the low murmur of his voice through the open window. Soft and desperate, as if he was reciting promises to a child he couldn't bear to lose. Willow, for her part, seemed to accept the new arrivals as a kind of personal responsibility. Every morning, Camilla found the mare waiting outside the guest cabin, head bent, dark eyes patient and unblinking. She stood sentry, snuffling at the door, her presence both a comfort and a silent challenge to Tyson's defenses. It was Maya who first bridged the gap. The baby, with her mop of tangled curls and wide, curious eyes, took to the ranch life as if she'd been born for it. She toddled around the cabin steps, sometimes chasing after Jasper's wagging tail, but more often drawn by the magnetic pull of Willow. The first time Maya giggled at the horse's soft wicker, Tyson nearly panicked, scooping her up with a frightened urgency that faded only when Willow merely dipped her head in greeting. Camilla watched from a distance, resisting the urge to intervene. She saw Maya light up around Willow, laughter bubbling up in pure, unguarded bursts. Even when Maya was fussy, tired, or hungry, she'd quiet at the sight of the black mare, tiny arms reaching out, eyes shining. One afternoon, after Maya's nap, Camilla set her on the porch and watched the child crawl determinedly toward Willow's waiting muzzle. Maya's fingers tangled in Willow's mane, and for the first time since their arrival, Tyson's tension softened into a look of confusion, a flicker of awe, as if he couldn't quite believe anything in his world could be this gentle. Camilla caught his eye. "She smiles more around that mare than she does around us," she said, not as an accusation, but a simple fact. Tyson shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. He kept his eyes on Maya, but Camilla noticed the way he relaxed a fraction, as if Willow's acceptance had begun to crack the walls he'd built. In the following days, Camilla offered Tyson quiet invitations. She never forced him to talk, never pressed for details about where he'd come from or what had driven him into the canyon with a baby in his arms. Instead, she put him to work in small, manageable ways, teaching him how to fill water buckets, showing him where the grain was kept, giving him a sense of purpose beyond just surviving. At first, Tyson hesitated, but Camilla's gentle persistence wore down his resistance. She taught him how to muck out Willow's stall, handed him a pitchfork, and showed him the rhythm of ranch chores. He watched her closely, copying her movements, every action careful and precise. And Camilla found a rhythm in their silence, the language of work becoming a bridge between their worlds. Maya was never far, sometimes perched on a hay bale, gnawing on a carrot, other times strapped to Tyson's back. In a makeshift sling, she babbled nonsense, waving to Willow, giggling at Jasper, occasionally bursting into tears that only Tyson could soothe. But it was clear she felt safe in the presence of the horse, and somehow, so did Tyson. One morning, while Camilla was fixing a fence post near the north field, she saw Tyson standing at Willow's stall, brush in hand. The mare, usually fidgety with strangers, stood perfectly still as Tyson worked, his strokes tentative at first, then more confident as Willow leaned into the touch. Camilla kept her distance, pretending to focus on her work, not wanting to interrupt the fragile peace. The sun filtered through the open barn doors, dust dancing in golden beams around them. Willow closed her eyes, a low sigh rumbling from her chest as Tyson brushed her mane, his brow furrowed in concentration. He whispered something, his voice barely a breath. Camilla edged closer, catching just a few words. First thing that doesn't look at me like I'm broken." The words hit her like a jolt. She pretended not to notice, but her heart twisted in her chest. She recognized the weight of being seen for your wounds instead of your worth, being defined by your scars instead of your spirit. Later that day, Camilla prepared lunch, peanut butter sandwiches, apples, and a pot of soup for herself. She carried a plate out to the cabin, found Tyson and Maya sitting on the steps, Willow dozing nearby. "Hope you're hungry," she said, handing him the plate. He accepted it with a mumbled, "Thank you." Maya reached for a slice of apple, gnawed at it, then held out a piece to Willow, who accepted it delicately from the baby's chubby fingers. Tyson watched, a soft smile tugging at his lips, and for a moment Camilla saw a glimmer of the boy he might have been before fear chased him across county lines. That evening, after Maya was asleep, Tyson lingered by the barn, brushing Willow's mane until the stars came out. Camilla joined him, leaning on the rail, the quiet stretching between them. Crickets sang, the wind whispered through the trees, and the sky exploded with 1,000 silent stars. "She's good company?" Camilla said quietly, nodding toward Willow. Tyson nodded, not looking at her. "She doesn't ask questions." Sometimes the right company doesn't have to." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, almost in a whisper, "Do you ever wonder if you'll feel normal again?" Camilla met his gaze, her own eyes steady. "All the time. But out here, you don't have to be normal. Just honest." He absorbed that, turning the words over in his mind. Willow nudged his shoulder, and for once, he didn't flinch. Night settled over Hart Ranch, soft and full of possibility. In the darkness, Tyson stood beside the mare, Maya sleeping soundly inside, and for the first time, hope didn't seem like a distant thing. It felt as close as Willow's breath and as real as the quiet eyes watching over them. On the Hart Ranch, time had its own rhythm. The days spun out in long, steady beats, chores and meals, sunrise and sunset, and the world outside felt far away, its dangers held at bay by the high fence, the thick woods, and the simple truth that here, nobody had to explain anything they weren't ready to share. Camilla understood the need for space. She saw it in Tyson's wary eyes, in the way his hand would instinctively tighten on Maya's shoulder when anyone drew near. There were questions she wanted to ask, about the bruises mottling his skin, about the journey that had left them at her door, but she never let them slip past her lips. She remembered her own younger years, when grief lived like a shadow in her bones. And she'd have given anything for a safe place where silence was respected. So she let Tyson be. Instead of probing, she built a routine around him. She let the boy find his way into the rhythm of ranch life, showing him how to clean the tack after sunrise, how to fill the troughs before the heat of midday. She taught him how to mend a torn halter with sturdy hands, how to sweep the barn so the dust settled rather than rose. She watched as his movements grew more confident, as he began to anticipate what needed to be done. Setting out grain before she asked, grabbing a rake without a word. But it was Willow who did the real work. The mare had a sixth sense for human pain. She'd stand quietly beside Tyson as he worked, breathing warm air onto his arm, her soft eyes gentle and patient. If he grew overwhelmed, Willow would nudge him with her nose, just enough to ground him, just enough to remind him that in this moment, he was safe. One afternoon, with the Wyoming sun blazing through a sky so blue it looked painted, Camilla found Tyson in the barn, brushing Willow's mane with slow, even strokes. The mare stood stock still, lower lip drooping in equine bliss, her tail swishing contentedly. Maya toddled in circles nearby, dragging a length of baling twine, her laughter echoing off the walls. Camilla leaned against the door, arms crossed, pretending to inspect a coil of rope. In truth, she was watching Tyson, seeing how the lines in his shoulders eased as he brushed the horse, how he hummed a tune under his breath, the notes barely audible but steady as a heartbeat. She spoke softly so as not to startle him. "She trusts you." Tyson paused, glancing over at Camilla. "I don't know why. Animals usually don't." Camilla shrugged, a half smile on her lips. Willow's always been good at finding people who need a friend." Tyson was quiet a moment, then said, "She's the first thing that doesn't look at me like I'm broken." The words hung in the air, and Camilla's heart twisted. She wanted to tell him he wasn't broken, that he was just a kid doing his best in a world that hadn't been kind. But she knew better than to offer platitudes. Instead, she stepped forward and reached for a second brush, handing it to him. She likes being brushed behind the ears. Try it. He did. Awkward at first, but Willow leaned into the touch, eyelids drooping. Tyson almost smiled, the tension in his face melting away for a moment. As days passed, Camilla included Tyson in more of the daily rituals. She taught him to check the fences, to lead Willow gently, to shovel manure without letting it spill from the wheelbarrow. She never pushed, never hovered. If Tyson seemed tired or withdrawn, she simply worked in silence beside him, letting the warm sun and the quiet companionship do their healing. Maya became a fixture in the barn, babbling to the horses, offering bits of apples she'd half-eaten herself. She'd crawl into piles of hay and fall asleep in the shade while Willow stood watch. Tyson relaxed more each day, though he always kept Maya in his line of sight, his guard never fully down. One morning, Camilla took them on a tour of the far pasture, showing Tyson the trick to spotting a hole before a horse's hoof could find it, explaining how to judge when the grass needed rotating. He listened intently, asking questions about the land, about the animals, about what to do when the creek flooded in the spring. They paused under a sprawling cottonwood, its branches heavy with new leaves. Tyson looked out over the fields, the mountains rising purple and sharp in the distance. "It's quiet here," he said, almost as if to himself. "It doesn't feel like anything bad could ever happen." Camilla nodded. "That's how I felt when I first came back after my mom passed. Sometimes I think places like this remember the good more than the bad." He was silent, watching as Willow grazed nearby, Maya tottering after her, shrieking with delight when the mare flicked her tail. The peace was broken only once that week, when Camilla caught Maya standing in the middle of the barn aisle, hands outstretched toward a startled barn cat. The cat hissed, back arched, and Tyson rushed forward, scooping Maya up. His hands shook, and for a moment the old panic flickered in his eyes. Camilla knelt beside him. "She's okay, Tyson. Cats are just nervous around little kids. Maya's tougher than she looks." He nodded, holding Maya close, but Camilla saw the tears he fought to blink away. She touched his shoulder gently. "You're doing good, you know? She's safe." Later that night, Camilla sat on her porch, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling in, cows lowing in the distance, frogs singing in the creek. Tyson sat a few feet away, Maya asleep in his lap, her tiny fists tangled in his shirt. He spoke suddenly, voice raw and honest. "I keep waiting for someone to come take her away. Or for someone to say, 'We don't belong here.'" Camilla's voice was soft but steady. "Nobody's taking her from you. Not while you're here, not while I'm around." He looked at her, hope and fear warring in his eyes. "Why are you helping us?" She considered her answer. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything, because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it, and because this ranch is big enough for second chances." He didn't reply, but he nodded, and Camilla felt the distance between them shrink just a little. Inside, Willow rested her head on the half door of her stall, eyes drifting shut. The night was peaceful, but Camilla knew the world outside still waited, full of questions and dangers. For now, though, the ranch was their refuge, and that was enough. The rhythm of the ranch held steady through the first weeks of summer. Tyson was learning to move with quiet confidence. He knew the chores by heart, the right way to fill water troughs so the horses wouldn't spook, the best places to set Maya down for a nap in the barn's cool shade. Camilla watched the boy begin to stand, a little taller. He laughed sometimes, low and startled, as if he'd forgotten how, and even started humming as he worked, the music blending with the early morning birdsong. But peace on the Hart Ranch was always fragile, and in Wyoming, privacy was as rare as rainfall. One cloudless afternoon, that fact settled in with the dust. Camilla was hauling bags of feed from her old pickup when she saw a plume of dust on the gravel drive, someone coming fast. She wiped sweat from her brow and squinted into the sun. The truck that came rolling up was a battered Ford, its paint faded to pale blue, and behind the wheel sat Hank Bailey, a rancher from down the road. Hank was big, broad-shouldered, weathered by decades outdoors, and never shy about other folks' business. He cut the engine and hopped out, boots hitting the gravel with a thud. "Afternoon, Camilla," he called, forcing a smile. "Hey there, Hank." Camilla tried to keep her tone friendly, even as she set her jaw. Hank's visits rarely meant anything good. "What brings you by?" Hank shrugged, eyes roaming the yard. "Was out checking the fences. Thought I'd see how you're holding up. Heard you had some excitement the other morning. Neighbors said you were out early with that black mare of yours." Camilla kept her face neutral. "Willow gets restless sometimes. She knows how to keep me on my toes." Just then, Tyson came around the corner of the barn with Maya on his hip, both faces flushed with sun and laughter. Tyson froze when he saw Hank, every muscle in his body going taut. Hank's gaze narrowed, lips pursing. "Who's that?" Camilla moved between Hank and Tyson, calm but unmistakably firm. "That's Tyson. He's helping out for a while." Hank looked from Tyson to Maya, then back to Camilla, his eyes cold and calculating. "You taking strays now, Camilla?" "I take in whoever needs a hand," she answered, her tone leaving no room for argument. For a moment, Hank didn't speak. He just stood there, eyes hard, taking in every detail. The bruises on Tyson's arms, the way Maya clung to his shirt, the fact that Camilla didn't bother to introduce them further. Then he snorted, spat in the dirt, and strode back to his truck. "Well, just be careful. Folks talk. Can't be too careful these days." With that, he slammed the door and sped away, gravel flying. Camilla's chest tightened. She knew what Hank was really saying. She watched until the truck disappeared, then turned to Tyson, whose eyes were wide and frightened. "It's all right. You had it, Tyson. He's just, nosy, that's all." Tyson nodded, but his grip on Maya was desperate, knuckles white. The tension didn't go away. If anything, it seeped into the ranch's bones, twisting the easy calm of the place. That evening, Camilla drove into town to pick up supplies. The feed store was crowded. A couple of ranch hands, an old woman buying dog food, and Mrs. Dobbs from the bakery, all clustered by the register. Camilla gave her order and waited by the barrels of grain. It was impossible not to notice when the whispers started. Hank stood by the counter, talking low with a group of regulars. Camilla caught the words, "runaway," and "hiding," and "not her business," all hushed, but pointed. Someone glanced at her, then looked away quickly. Tyson, who'd insisted on coming to town, "So Maya can see the world," he'd said. But Camilla knew it was because he didn't want Marcia to be left alone. Stood quietly by the door, Maya perched on his hip. He watched the people in the store, shrinking a little each time someone glanced their way. When their feed order was ready, Camilla thanked the clerk and hurried outside. She loaded the truck as quickly as she could. Jaw clenched. Tyson helped, his silence loud in the warm afternoon air. Back at the ranch that night, Camilla found Tyson sitting alone in the barn, Maya asleep in his lap. He stared at the ground, shoulders hunched. The weight of the world pressing down on him, and she sat beside him on a bale of hay, not saying anything at first. The silence was thick. Finally, Tyson spoke, his voice barely more than a whisper. "They know about me now, don't they?" Camilla nodded. "Some folks do. But you're safe here. No one's going to hurt you. Not while I'm around." Tyson swallowed hard. "They'll tell. That's what people do. They see someone different and they talk. Last time it happened, they called the police. I had to run. I thought maybe here." He broke off, voice cracking. Maya stirred in her sleep, whimpering. Tyson rocked her gently, tears slipping down his cheeks. Camilla put a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone anymore. I know it's scary, but you did nothing wrong. You and Maya deserve to be somewhere safe." That night, Tyson didn't go back to the cabin. Camilla found him curled up in the hay beside Willow's stall, Maya bundled in his arms, Willow's warm breath ruffling his hair. And Camilla fetched a blanket and draped it over them, her heart breaking at how small he looked, how fiercely he clung to Maya as if she were the last good thing in his life. She sat with them in the quiet barn, listening to the mare's steady breathing, the creak of the rafters. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Camilla wondered how many more storms she'd have to weather for these two to find peace. In the coming days, the mood on the ranch changed. Camilla noticed how Tyson started to avoid Willow during the day, withdrawing into himself. Maya grew fretful, sensing her brother's anxiety. Willow paced more, uneasy, as if she, too, felt the tension rising. Camilla doubled down, working harder to draw Tyson out. She included him in every chore, handed him the reins when it was time to walk Willow, invited him to dinner with gentle persistence. Slowly, with time, Tyson began to re-emerge. He started brushing Willow again, whispered to Maya as he tucked her in at night, found strength in the routines Camilla insisted on keeping. But the threat of gossip hung over them, a shadow that wouldn't quite leave. Camilla knew, deep down, that the worst might still be ahead. For now, though, she was determined to keep her promise. As long as Tyson and Maya were under her roof, no one would hurt them. Not if she had anything to say about it. Wyoming storms came in two forms. The kind that rolled in black and furious across the prairie, and the kind that arrived quietly, announced by the crunch of tires on gravel and the sharp knock of authority at the door. That June afternoon, both seemed to gather at once over Hart Ranch, the sky darkening with angry clouds, the wind rising, and Camilla's nerves humming with a tension she hadn't felt in years. It started with Willow, as usual. The black mare was agitated, trotting circles in her paddock, nostrils flaring. Camilla felt it too, a sense that something was off, as if the world itself had shifted out of place. She glanced at the horizon. Thunderheads were piling up, and the air was thick, electric. In the distance, a car's headlights cut through the gloom, winding up the long, rutted drive. Camilla wiped her hands on her jeans and called out to Tyson, who was inside the barn with Maya. "Stay put, honey," she said quietly as she stepped onto the porch, bracing herself for whatever the wind was about to bring. The sedan stopped near the house. Two figures stepped out, a broad-shouldered man in a sheriff's badge and crisp uniform, and a woman with a clipboard, hair pulled into a tight bun, eyes sharp as flint. Camilla's gut twisted. She dealt with local law before, but there was an official chill to this visit she didn't like. The man led the way, nodding politely. "Afternoon, Miss Hart. I'm Deputy Avery, Albany County Sheriff's. This is Miss Portman from Child Protective Services." Oh, Camilla didn't move from her spot on the step. "Afternoon," she replied, voice calm, shoulders square. "What brings you all the way out here?" Miss Portman stepped forward, clipboard in hand, tone clipped. "We received an anonymous report of a minor, possibly two, living on your property without proper guardianship. We'd like to come in and speak with you and the children." Camilla's eyes narrowed just slightly. She knew Hank had started talking after all. She drew a slow breath, grounding herself, her mother's lessons echoing in her mind. "Don't ever let them see you scared. I'm not aware of any law that lets you enter my home without a court order," Camilla said, her voice steady as stone. She felt Willow's eyes on her, the mare pressed against the fence, watching every move. "If you have one, let me see it." The deputy shifted awkwardly, glancing at Miss Portman, who hesitated, caught off guard by Camilla's resolve. "We can come back with one, Miss Hart, if you'd rather." Camilla folded her arms, blocking the path. "I think that would be best. And unless you have one right now, this conversation's over." At that moment, Willow let out a loud, whickering call, hooves planted and head down, as if she was physically daring anyone to cross the yard. Tyson peered out from the barn, clutching Maya to his chest, his eyes wide with fear. Camilla caught his gaze and shook her head almost imperceptibly. "Stay back. Stay safe." Miss Portman straightened, feigning a smile. "We're just here for the children's safety, Miss Hart." "I'm sure you are," Camilla replied. "But you won't be speaking to them without my lawyer present and the right paperwork in your hand. That's how it works in Albany County." A gust of wind lashed across the porch, rattling the windows. The storm was almost on them now, the clouds rolling low and fast, thunder rumbling in the hills. The deputy looked uneasy. "We'll be in touch, Miss Hart. All right." They returned to their car, slamming the doors as the first fat drops of rain hit the windshield. Camilla watched until they turned around and rumbled back down the drive, dust and water mixing in their wake. Only then did she let her shoulders sag. Willow trotted to the edge of the fence, pressing her nose against the wire, her body tense and alert. Camilla walked to the barn, her heart pounding, rain slicking her hair. Tyson was inside, huddled behind a bale of hay, Maya tucked into his side, her cheeks tear-stained. He looked up, eyes wild. Are they coming back? Are they going to take her? His voice was small, almost a whisper, as if he couldn't bear the weight of the answer. Camilla knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his back. Not tonight, she said softly. Not if I have anything to say about it. The barn shuddered as the wind picked up, rain beating against the tin roof. Lightning flashed, illuminating Willow's silhouette at the open door. The horse's presence was grounding, her dark eyes fixed on the little family inside. Maya's cries faded as she watched Willow, her tiny fist wrapped in Tyson's shirt. They sat like that for a long time. Tyson shaking, Maya drifting to sleep, Camilla holding them both in the circle of her arms while the storm howled outside. She remembered her own childhood, hiding in the same barn during summer storms. Her mother's voice calm and strong, teaching her that fear could be survived, one breath at a time. When the worst of the storm passed, Camilla rose and brought out blankets. She made a nest of hay for Maya, wrapped Tyson in an old quilt, and brewed hot chocolate on the camp stove she kept in the tack room for emergencies. The barn glowed with a soft yellow light, rain pattering down in gentle rhythm. Tyson sipped the cocoa, hands still trembling. If they come back, I'll run, he whispered, voice tight with desperation. I won't let them take her. I promised my mom. Camilla's heart broke for him. You're not alone now, Tyson. You're not fighting this by yourself. She squeezed his hand. We'll get you help. We'll do it the right way. He looked up at her, his face streaked with tears and determination. You really think I can keep her? Camilla nodded, her voice certain, even as her own doubts gnawed at her. If anyone can fight for her, it's you. But you can't do it by running. You do it by standing your ground. As midnight came and the storm faded to gentle rain, Camilla watched Willow stand guard by the door, every muscle coiled and ready. The old mare didn't sleep until dawn. She was the first line of defense and the last, the silent sentinel that seemed to know better than anyone what it meant to hold your family close, no matter what came knocking. When the sun finally broke through, painting the world clean and new, Camilla made a decision. There would be no more hiding, no more running. It was time to fight, not just for Tyson and Maya, but for the promise this place had always stood for. A place where the lost could rest, where the scared could heal, and where family wasn't defined by blood or birth certificate, but by the willingness to stay and stand together when the world tried to tear you apart. After the storm, the Wyoming air seemed cleaner, the grass brighter, the sky an impossible, unbroken blue. Yet inside the Hart Ranch, the anxiety lingered, a weight in the corners of every room, a shadow at the edge of every sunrise. Camilla knew the authorities would be back, and she also knew Tyson couldn't live the rest of his life running from shadows. So, as the world dried and greened, she started the paperwork. Legal matters had always made Camilla's skin itch, but she was no stranger to bureaucracy. She spent her mornings on the phone, sorting through forms, setting appointments with a friend of a friend lawyer in Laramie. She filed for emergency guardianship of Maya and worked with Tyson to apply for temporary residency, two battles that felt impossibly steep but necessary. Camilla saw how the waiting ground Tyson down. He hovered in doorways, always one ear to the wind, half expecting the authorities to return at any moment. At night, he slept fitfully, one arm around Maya, as if to keep her tethered to this place by sheer force of will. It was Willow who broke the tension. Early one morning, before the sun had properly chased away the night's chill, Tyson found Camilla at the paddock, grain in hand. The black mare stood waiting, her breath pluming in the cool air, eyes watchful and intelligent. Tyson paused at the fence, hesitating. Camilla noticed. She set the grain bucket aside, wiped her hands on her jeans, and nodded toward Willow. You ever ridden before? Tyson shook his head, eyes darting to the horse and back. I used to watch my cousin ride at a fair once. Never tried myself. She's gentle, as long as you're patient. Would you like to learn? Tyson hesitated, searching Camilla's face for judgment and finding only encouragement. I don't know if I can. I get scared. Sometimes even being outside is hard. Camilla's voice was soft, but firm. That's the best time to learn. Courage isn't about not being afraid, Tyson. It's about getting back up after you fall. The boy bit his lip, gaze lingering on Willow. He seemed to weigh the possibility, balancing fear against the hope of freedom. Finally, he nodded. Let's do it then, Camilla said, her voice brightening. She showed Tyson how to brush Willow's coat, how to check the tack and tighten the girth. She explained every step in quiet, patient detail, and when it came time to lead Willow from the paddock, Tyson's hand barely shook at all. With Maya bundled up on the fence nearby, Jasper curled protectively at her feet, Camilla helped Tyson mount. The boy was awkward, tense, but Willow stood perfectly still, patient as stone. Tyson grabbed the saddle horn, knuckles white, and let out a shaky breath. All right, girl, Camilla said, stroking Willow's nose. Let's show him how it's done. They started slow, Camilla leading Willow in a wide circle around the paddock. Tyson sat rigid at first, every muscle locked with fear, but gradually his body found the horse's rhythm. His eyes widened in wonder, and Maya, perched on the fence, clapped and laughed, her joy ringing clear in the crisp morning. Halfway through their second lap, a bird exploded out of the tall grass, wings flapping with sudden violence. Willow spooked, a jolt running through her whole body. Tyson panicked. His hand slipped, and in one desperate motion, he threw himself sideways off the saddle, landing hard in the dirt. Camilla rushed over, but Tyson sat up on his own, shaking and coughing. His knees were scraped, jeans torn, but his eyes were wild not with pain, but with shame. I can't do it, he muttered, scrambling to his feet. I'm not brave enough. I'm going to mess everything up. I can't even stay on a horse. Camilla knelt beside him, gentle but unyielding. Hey, look at me, Tyson. He hesitated, then met her gaze, his own eyes brimming with frustrated tears. Courage isn't staying on, Camilla said, her voice low. It's getting back up after. You did the hardest part, trying even when you were scared. That's how you get strong. That's how you make a life for yourself and Maya. Tyson stared at her, breathing hard, then at Maya, who waved her hands and giggled, not the least bit concerned by her brother's tumble. Willow walked over, lowering her great black head until her nose bumped gently against Tyson's shoulder. He reached up, fingers trembling, and stroked her cheek. Willow snorted as if to say, Let's try again. Camilla smiled. What do you say? One more time? I'll help you up. For a moment, Tyson just knelt there, the summer breeze tugging at his hair. Then he nodded, small but certain. Yeah, I'll try again. All right. Together, they returned to the saddle, Camilla holding Willow's lead. The second time, Tyson rode taller. He wobbled, but he stayed on. And when Willow circled back to Maya, the little girl squealed with joy. Tyson grinned, hesitant at first, then wider, pride flickering behind his eyes. All morning they practiced. Each time Tyson slipped, Camilla encouraged him to remount. By noon, his confidence had grown, his body moving more naturally with Willow's stride. Maya clapped for him every lap, and even Jasper barked encouragement from the grass. After their final ride, Camilla found Tyson sitting in the grass, Willow's head in his lap. Maya curled against his side. The boy looked up, face shining with sweat, dirt, and a hard-earned happiness. I never thought I'd get back on, he said quietly. Camilla sat beside him. That's how you know it matters? Tyson looked out at the fields, the sky stretching wide and safe above them. Maybe I can do this. Maybe we can stay. Maybe I can give Maya the kind of home we never had. Camilla reached over, squeezing his shoulder. You already are, Tyson. Every day you choose to stay, to fight for her. You're doing more than most people ever do. They sat together, the three of them, Willow dozing contentedly, the day's earlier fear forgotten in the glow of shared victory. The world still held its dangers. Camilla knew that. But in this moment, they'd claimed something new. A step forward, a lesson in courage, and a taste of the freedom that only comes when you refuse to be beaten by fear. As the sun lowered over Hart Ranch, Camilla watched Tyson and Maya chase Jasper through the tall grass, Willow following at a gentle trot. The shadows grew long, but the light remained, and with it, the promise that sometimes the smallest acts of bravery are the ones that change everything. The Wyoming wind was sharp the morning of Tyson's court date, sending dust and gold leaves spinning across the main street of Laramie. It was the sort of day when the sky seemed too wide for the town below, and every step toward the courthouse felt both momentous and terrifying. Camilla drove in silence, hands steady on the wheel, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few minutes. Tyson sat in the back seat, pressed against the door, dressed in the best he could manage. Borrowed jeans that were a little too long, a clean white shirt, and a navy hoodie Camilla had dug out of a box in her attic. Maya wore her favorite overalls and clutched a drawing she'd made, a crayon horse with a stick figure family, hearts floating above their heads. Camilla wore her oldest boots and a pressed flannel shirt, her hair braided tight. She wanted the judge to see a rancher, a protector, someone who could be trusted to fight for these kids. Maya was quiet, but she didn't fuss, nestled between Tyson and her battered teddy bear. They parked a block away from the courthouse, the nerves in the car almost tangible. Camilla knelt on the sidewalk, tucking Maya's hair behind her ear. "You be my brave girl, okay?" she whispered, kissing her forehead. Maya nodded, her wide brown eyes full of trust. The courthouse was all glass and stone, an old building trying to look modern. Inside, everything echoed, footsteps, voices, the rattle of the security gates. Tyson held Maya's hand with a white-knuckle grip, his jaw clenched tight. Camilla touched his shoulder. "You've done harder things than this," she said softly. This is just telling your story. We've got your back." The clerk led them down a long corridor to a waiting room that smelled like coffee and disinfectant. Their lawyer, Miss Walsh, a no-nonsense woman with a fierce kindness in her eyes, met them at the door. She wore a blue suit and sensible shoes, a thick folder tucked under her arm. "You ready, Tyson?" she asked, crouching to look him in the eye. He hesitated, then nodded. "I guess." Miss Walsh smiled. "That's good enough. Just answer honestly. Remember, you have people here who care about you." The waiting seemed to last forever. Maya colored on her drawing, Camilla watched the clock, and Tyson stared at the floor, lips moving silently as he practiced what he'd say. When the bailiff finally called their names, Camilla's heart thudded so loudly she was sure everyone in the hallway could hear it. Inside the courtroom, the air was cool and still. The judge, a woman with gray hair pulled in a bun, sat high behind a polished desk, glasses perched on her nose. There were only a handful of people present. Ms. Portman, from Child Welfare, the county lawyer, Ms. Walsh, and them. The judge looked down at the papers before her. "We're here to consider guardianship of Maya Alvarez and the residency status of Tyson Alvarez. Miss Walsh, your clients are present?" "Yes, Your Honor," Miss Walsh replied. The judge nodded. "Let's begin." Miss Portman spoke first, laying out the facts. The anonymous report, the discovery of Tyson and Maya at Hart Ranch, the questions of guardianship and immigration. She kept her tone neutral, but her eyes lingered on Tyson with an almost clinical detachment. The county lawyer followed, reciting statutes and procedures, his words dry and distant. Then it was Miss Walsh's turn. She stood tall, voice steady and unwavering. She spoke of Tyson's courage, how he'd protected his sister, how he'd taken responsibility far beyond his years. She described the safety and stability Camilla's ranch had given them. She presented Maya's pediatrician's report, notes from the local school, letters from neighbors attesting to Camilla's character and the kindness she'd shown. Finally, the judge turned to Tyson. "Mr. Alvarez, please stand." Tyson stood, knees trembling. Camilla could see the fear in his eyes, the terror that one wrong answer might tear Maya from his arms. The judge's voice softened. "Tyson, can you tell me in your own words why you think you should be allowed to stay with Maya? Why you want to be her guardian?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Tyson's lips parted, then closed. He looked down at Maya, who smiled and squeezed his hand, her drawing clutched in her fist. He looked up at the judge, voice shaking but clear. Because I already lost one family," he said. "I'm not losing her, too. She's all I've got. I don't care if it's hard, or if people think I can't do it. I'll work. I'll go to school. I'll do whatever you want. But please, don't take her from me. I promised my mom I'd keep her, safe. She needs me, and I need her." For a moment, the only sound was Maya's coloring pencil scratching on the paper. Camilla felt tears burn behind her eyes. Even Miss Walsh blinked quickly. The judge was quiet, watching Tyson closely, as she then looked to Camilla. "Miss Hart, do you believe Tyson and Maya belong at your ranch?" Camilla stood, her voice unshakable. "I do, Your Honor. They're already part of our family. They've made our ranch better. Tyson's a good brother. And Maya, well, she's got all of us wrapped around her finger. We want them to stay." The judge nodded and shuffled her papers. She asked Tyson a few more questions about school, about what he liked at the ranch, about his dreams for the future. Tyson answered as best he could, halting and honest, never once letting go of Maya's hand. After what felt like an eternity, the judge leaned back, eyes thoughtful. "This court finds that Tyson Alvarez has demonstrated remarkable responsibility for his sister, and that Miss Hart's ranch offers a supportive environment. Guardianship of Maya Alvarez is hereby granted to Tyson Alvarez, with Miss Hart as secondary guardian. Temporary residency is approved with a review in 1 year. I expect regular check-ins from child welfare, but above all, I expect this family to keep doing what families do, love and look after each other." The words landed like a benediction. Maya bounced in her seat, waving her drawing. Tyson's legs buckled, and he nearly sat back down in relief, tears streaking his cheeks. Camilla hugged them both, her own eyes shining. Outside the courthouse, the wind felt different, warmer, softer, almost playful. Camilla knelt and looked at Maya's drawing. The horse, the family, the hearts. She smiled. "Looks like we're all official now." Tyson let out a breath he'd been holding for months. "Does this mean we can stay? For real?" "For real," Camilla said. "We'll deal with whatever comes next. Together." As they walked back to the truck, Maya riding on Tyson's hip, Camilla glanced up at the sky. The world was still big, still dangerous, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like it belonged to them too. The sun rose on Hart Ranch the next morning with a special kind of warmth, one that came not just from Wyoming's relentless summer, but from the peace that settled in after so many months of uncertainty. For the first time in what felt like forever, Tyson awoke without that knot of fear in his stomach. The court decision was still echoing in his mind, but now it sounded like hope. He was up early, Maya still curled up and dreaming on her little cot, her battered teddy bear tucked under one arm. Camilla was already out in the fields, boots crunching through the dew, her silhouette steady and calm against the gold and green of the grass. The sky was painted in wide strokes of pink and lavender, promise in every direction. Tyson dressed quietly and stepped outside, the cool air filling his lungs, the sounds of horses and cattle waking up all around. He found Camilla by the fence, fixing a loose rail, willow grazing nearby. "Morning," Camilla greeted him, glancing over with a smile that was soft, almost maternal. "You sleep at all?" A little," Tyson admitted, rubbing his eyes. "It still doesn't feel real. Like maybe I'll wake up and we'll have to run again." Camilla set down her hammer and straightened. "You won't. Not here. This is your place as much as mine now. Besides, Willow would never let anybody take you by surprise." As if on cue, the black mare trotted over and bumped her head against Tyson's shoulder. Tyson grinned, stroking her velvety muzzle. He realized then that Willow's watchful patience had been the first thing to make this place feel safe, even before the adults caught up. Maya toddled out onto the porch in her pajamas, waving a fistful of wildflowers she'd picked from the yard. "Look!" she shouted, and Camilla laughed. The day unfolded in gentle, unhurried routines. For the first time, Tyson didn't feel like an outsider or a guest. He pitched in with chores, sweeping the barn aisle, brushing Willow, helping Camilla rotate the grazing herd to a fresh patch of green. Maya tagged along, her laughter echoing as she darted between the horse's legs. Always careful, always watched. As the morning faded into afternoon, a familiar pickup truck rumbled down the drive. Tyson tensed for a second, though old habits hard to break, but Camilla simply waved and called, "It's Mrs. Gutierrez. She brings pies when she visits." Mrs. Gutierrez was a round woman with a booming laugh, her arms full of baked goods and a bag of old storybooks for Maya. She ruffled Tyson's hair, squeezed Camilla's hand, and chatted as if she'd known them all their lives. "You know, Camilla, folks have been talking about your new family. Most of them are rooting for you. I told Hank Bailey he should mind his own business and worry about his own fences for once." Camilla snorted, but Tyson caught the way her eyes softened. Relief, maybe, or gratitude. Mrs. Gutierrez stayed for lunch, reading to Maya while Camilla and Tyson cleaned up in the kitchen. It was the kind of ordinary day that, for a long time, Tyson had only ever watched through the windows of other people's lives. After lunch, Camilla made an announcement. "I've been thinking, there's a lot of kids out there like you two, lost, scared, not sure who to trust. Maybe it's time this ranch became more than just a place for horses. What if we opened it up, made it a haven for kids and animals who need a second chance?" Tyson blinked, surprise and curiosity mingling in his eyes. "You mean, let other kids come live here? Not just live. Heal, learn, belong. We've got enough land, enough space. And with you and Maya here, maybe others would feel safe enough to try." Camilla's voice was full of quiet hope. "I've already called the county. They want to send some local teens over to help groom the horses and learn ranch work." The idea felt big, almost overwhelming, but Tyson saw the sparkle in Maya's eyes as she listened and the pride in Camilla's voice. For the first time, he thought about what it might feel like to help someone else the way they'd helped him. The next week, the first group of kids arrived. Some were shy, barely speaking above a whisper, and others tried to act tough, hiding behind sarcasm or silence. Tyson saw himself in all of them. He took charge of the horse grooming lessons, showing them how to hold a brush, how to earn a horse's trust. Willow was patient with the nervous ones, standing perfectly still as, shaking hands, learned to move gently. Camilla supervised from a distance, offering a steady presence when things got tense. She taught fencing, haystacking, and the art of listening without judgment. Even Maya got in on it, showing the little ones how to feed sugar cubes from a flat palm. One afternoon, a boy named Eli, tall and wiry, his face closed off, refused to go near the horses. Tyson remembered his own terror, his first day on the ranch, the way Willow had waited him out. So he sat with Eli on the fence, not saying much, just sharing the silence. Eventually, Willow wandered over, nudged Eli's foot, and stood quietly. Tyson smiled. "She knows you're scared. That's okay. She'll wait." By the end of the day, Eli was brushing Willow's mane, Maya running circles around them, the sunlight soft and golden. The ranch grew busier, but never chaotic. Each kid brought something new, a story, a skill, a need for comfort. Camilla let them find their own pace, always making sure they knew they were wanted, not just tolerated. The barn became a place of laughter and learning, the fields a playground where the past didn't matter so much. Tyson found himself happier than he'd ever been. He watched Maya thrive, saw her confidence blossom as she made new friends and learned to help with chores. He caught himself smiling more, talking more, letting himself be known. Sometimes, at sunset, he'd sit on the porch steps with Camilla, Maya curled up between them, and just breathe. Willow would stand in the field, not as a lookout anymore, but as a guardian. A symbol of what could be rescued, if only someone was brave enough to try. Camilla nudged Tyson with her elbow one evening, nodding to a group of kids laughing by the barn. "You're good with them," she said. "You know what it's like to be afraid. That's something they need." Tyson looked out at the ranch, at the life they'd built from dust and fear, at the family that had formed in spite of everything. "I think maybe I finally belong somewhere," he said. Camilla put an arm around his shoulders. "You do, and you always will." As the last light faded, Tyson felt the truth of it settle deep inside him. Real, solid, unshakable. The ranch had become something new, and so had he. Together, they'd turned survival into something better, a place to call home. Sunset wrapped the Hart Ranch in a light so warm it looked painted, the last rays turning every blade of grass to fire and casting long shadows from the barn to the farthest fence line. It was the kind of evening that made everything seem possible. The kind where the world felt vast but close, all at once. Maya toddled down the dirt path, her tiny boots making soft prints in the dust. She had a pink ribbon clutched tightly in her hand, the one Camila had tied in her hair the morning of their court victory, now a bit frayed at the edges, but precious. Tyson walked behind her, his hands stuffed in his pockets, head down as if deep in thought. He'd grown taller over the summer, leaner and surer of himself, his shoulders no longer curled inward like they had been when he first arrived. Willow grazed nearby, her coat gleaming in the golden light. She looked up as Maya approached, ears flicking forward, dark eyes soft. Camilla leaned against the fence, watching the little girl and her horse, a quiet smile on her face. The other kids, the ones who'd found shelter and kinship here over the last months, played in the yard, the laughter mingling with the sound of distant cattle. Maya stopped in front of Willow, her face scrunched in concentration. She reached up, ribbon in hand, but couldn't quite reach the mare's bridle. Tyson hurried over and knelt beside her. "Here, let me help," he whispered, his voice gentle. Together, they tied the pink ribbon into Willow's mane, just behind her ear. The mare stood perfectly still, as if she knew the ceremony mattered, lowering her head to make it easier for Maya's little hands. Camilla blinked back tears as she watched. The pink ribbon fluttered in the breeze, a small but powerful sign of belonging, of hope that had survived storms and whispers in all the darkness that once threatened to swallow them. In that moment, Maya pressed her cheek against Willow's neck and whispered something, a secret promise only the horse could hear. Nearby, Tyson reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny wooden horse he'd spent weeks carving. Its edges were rough, but its shape was true, with a notched mane and a tiny star scratched onto its side, just like Willow's. He crossed the yard to the old front gate, found a nail just above the latch, and hung the carving there. It swung in the breeze, catching the light as the sun slipped behind the hills. The kids gathered one by one, drawn by the quiet celebration. Camilla wrapped an arm around Tyson's shoulders, pulling him close. "It's beautiful," she said, nodding at the ribbon and the horse. "You two have started something here, something real." Tyson smiled, shy and proud at the same time. "You did too. You didn't give up on us." Camilla shrugged, her eyes glinting. "Nobody should ever have to be alone if the ye don't want to be. That's the only rule I really care about here." As dusk deepened, everyone moved toward the porch. The other kids helped Maya and Tyson light the string of lanterns Camilla kept for special nights, their warm glow casting little pools of gold across the yard. Someone brought out a guitar, and a few tentative notes turned into songs, voices rising together in the soft Wyoming dark. Later, as the stars blinked awake overhead, Camilla sat on the porch steps, Willow grazing close by. Maya curled up beside her, half asleep, her pink ribbon trailing behind her like a flag. Tyson stood by the gate, touching the wooden horse as if to anchor himself to this new reality. Camilla glanced over at him, remembering the boy who had arrived with bruises and silence, running from the world with Maya clinging to his neck. She saw now the way he looked after the younger kids, how he encouraged Eli to keep trying when a horse shied away, how he taught Maya to hold a paintbrush steady when she painted horseshoes for the barn. He had found a place to be useful, a reason to be proud. For the first time in his life, maybe, he didn't have to fight so hard just to survive. The night breeze rustled the tall grass and carried the scent of sage through the open windows. The ranch felt alive, Safe. A haven built not from money or luck, but from the courage of those who refuse to give up on one another. Camilla thought of all the storms, the near misses, the way the community had rallied after seeing Tyson and Maya's story in the local paper. Folks who once whispered now dropped off bags of apples or fresh eggs, stopping to say hello. Some even offered help, asking how they could support Camilla's vision of a haven for kids and animals who needed a fresh start. She remembered her mother's words, passed down on hard nights. You don't have to be the whole world for someone. Sometimes just being a safe place is enough. Now, watching Tyson and Maya, she realized that safe places made the world one small act at a time. As the fireflies appeared, Maya stirred and whispered, "Willow's my best friend, and so are you, Camilla." Camilla hugged her tight, heart full to bursting. Tyson walked over, hands jammed in his pockets, but his face was open, vulnerable in the soft light. "Can I stay up a little longer?" he asked, nodding toward the porch where the others were sharing stories and jokes. Camilla ruffled his hair. "You can stay up as long as you want. This is your home now." He nodded, relief and gratitude mingling on his face. Maya crawled into his lap, and together they watched the lanterns sway, the world outside the ranch fading into darkness. Willow approached, standing quietly behind them, a silent guardian. The ribbon fluttered from her mane, catching the starlight. Tyson reached back and touched Willow's cheek. "She saved us," he said quietly. "All of us." Camilla nodded. "We weren't saving her. She was saving us. This place, this mare, this moment. That's what home became." VO. Not all rescues are allowed. Some arrive silently, wrapped in instinct and dust. Animals know who needs them, and sometimes they wait until we're ready. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who you stay and fight for. As the last song drifted into the night, the kids huddled closer, the porch alive with laughter and hope. Camilla glanced once more at the pink ribbon and the wooden horse on the gate, symbols of battles fought and won, of lives changed not by grand gestures, but by the quiet courage to keep loving, keep trying, keep believing in the possibility of something better. The wind picked up, cool and fresh, carrying with it the promise that tomorrow would bring more challenges, more chances to heal, more opportunities to choose each other. And in that safe circle of light, under the watchful gaze of Willow and the endless Wyoming sky, Camilla knew the truth. Home wasn't a place, it was a promise, renewed every day, and held fast by the ones who never let go. Underscore, 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 underscore,